Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Unbettable. Today it is just Holmes and I. Gary is somewhere along the
Somewhere
way.
in the ether.
I honestly don't know what he's up to. I think he's at home, but couldn't make it today. So it's just Holmes and I, but we got a lot to talk about. We got baseball, we got NBA, we got NHL, we got no golf talk because Gary didn't show up after requesting golf talk. So it's probably going to be a little bit of a short episode, but before we get into that and I talk to Holmes, a couple things to talk about. One, Bull Gator Broadcasting has officially signed a new podcast, Off the Bench Banter, with two of my boys, Austin Sterling, Ryan Somerville. They're working on their first episode. By the time you watch it, it will probably be uploaded. So go check it out. It's going to be awesome. It's honestly like a Barroom Boys times Unbettable crossover, but more fantasy oriented. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really cool. And the other thing to get ahead of, you might notice the camera angle is a little bit different than normal. I'm in the process of beginning to move, so this is probably the last time any of this is going to look normal to you. Moving down south, so I'm going to have a brand new setup, whole room for it. It's going to be awesome, but I may be MIA after Thursday's episode just because I'm going to be moving and then I'm going to New York. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Holmes, Gary will take care of it. They will hold down the fort. They will dominate. And Holmes and I got a little project we're going to be working on when I get back. So without further ado, Holmes, how was your weekend? I know it was taken up with just about the same thing as me, and that's sports, more specifically college, men's, World Series. Take it away.
Yes, sir. You hit it right on the nose. The weekend was fantastic because once again, I feel like I'm saying this every pod, dude. I am so fucking locked in to the Men's College World Series. I've been so locked into college baseball all season long from the jump. This is the culmination. This is what we have worked to get to all season long. And holy shit, it has not disappointed. My God. 3 out of the 4 entry games, I guess we had the first games of the series. The first matchups were walk-offs. The fourth game, Texas A&M and Florida, almost was a walk-off. Still was a one-run game that came down to the wire. I mean, it's been exciting-ass baseball. Every team has been playing their dicks off. I mean, it's just incredible to watch, dude. And we're going to get into it. Florida, massive win today. You're keeping count at home. SEC still has 4 teams left in the tournament. ACC down to 2. And they will be down to 1 after tomorrow. So ACC, they got to step it up here a little bit. But it's been awesome, man. It's been awesome. I've been so locked into it all weekend. I'm sure you've been the same way. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, man. I mean, you fit in every game you can. And it just so happened that the Florida game worked out well. We knew it was going into a weather delay. And, we had time to go watch the Panthers at the watch party at Amarin Arena, which was a fucking horrible game.
Yeah, that was tough.
And then we left there, and it was right on time for the Gator game. Mm-hmm. So I just had an action-packed weekend. It almost felt like a UFC fight card. It starts at 11. You're up till 2 watching it. It was awesome. We did lose, but we rebounded today. Looked great. I'm excited for the rest of the tournament. The only team that's been knocked out is Virginia. So we got a lot of baseball to watch, man. It's a great time between that and the MLB, the All-Star ballot dropping. But Holmes, do you want to do any analysis? What are you trying to do here today?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll jump into some of the games before we talk about Gators baseball because, I mean, so much has happened already in the College World Series. I just want to touch on some of these games so far. Everything got kicked off Friday with Virginia and North Carolina, and then Florida State and Tennessee playing in the nightcap. Mm-hmm. Again, both of these games ended in walk-offs. North Carolina, Vance Honeycutt does it again. Unreal. Walks it off for UNC. I mean, this guy, postseason, he has turned into an absolute animal. Me and Mondo are just texting each other every UNC game. Like, this guy just gets better and better. He is going to get picked very, very high in this year's draft. And I think a lot of people knew that coming into the season, but boy, has he shown that he is shining in the biggest moments possible. He's been fantastic. And then honestly, the Tennessee-Florida State game, that one was down to the wire. Somewhat controversial call with a check swing that was not called a strike. in the either ninth inning, I think it was. Brendan Oxford pitched that a Tennessee player looked like he might have gone around on, but they did not call that a strike. Ended up being the game-winning end of the inning for Tennessee as they rallied and were able to win the game 12-11. I mean, the biggest thing here, though, Florida State, they were up so big in this game and they let a massive, massive lead just slip right through their fingers. And Florida State, like I love this team. I hate Florida State, obviously, as a school, but this team, man, they are incredible. Like, you have to love what they're doing. You have to love the turnaround that they've been able to make since last season. They had 44 straight NCAA postseason appearances until last season to snap that streak. I mean, I've been hearing all over on the announcing for these games. Like, those Florida State players were embarrassed, man. They're embarrassed to show their face in front of alumni, in front of past players, fans. Like, they were just disgraced that they had broken that tradition for so long, and to come back the next year and just be as dominant as they have been, making it to the College World Series. They dropped that first game, but then they come right back on Sunday, beat up on Virginia. Like you said, Virginia is the first team knocked out of this tournament. 2 straight losses, they're gone. And then just today, Florida beats NC State, makes them the second team out of the tournament. And before that even happened, what we had on Saturday was a great game with Kentucky and NC State. Kentucky also winning in walk-off fashion in a very close, tight game. That was the one that I was probably least locked into on all weekend long. That was not really one I paid too much attention to. Obviously, the Texas A&M Florida game, staying up till 2 a.m. to watch that shit. Watch Jace Laviolette absolutely rob Cade Kurland of a home run in the ninth. Like, I mean, that game had everything you could have wanted and more. Pretty much that whole weekend had it all. So, I mean, any thoughts from you on these opening games? Any thoughts about what just transpired in this wild-ass weekend?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on all of it. Touching on the North Carolina stuff, we knew Honeycutt was going to be a top 15 pick. I think he's moved his way up to a top 8, potentially top 6 pick at this point. He has been absolutely unreal. We know he can perform in the clutch, and that alone should shoot him up draft boards. Over to Florida State, Tennessee. The long story short here is, if you're Florida State, you should never be in that position to rely on a call like that. Obviously, it sucks. It's such a borderline call, but you should be performing better so that doesn't happen. You blew an 8-4 lead. That's not ideal for you, and that puts you into this tough position. So, that, as far as Friday games, that was kind of the overall view. As I said, Florida, Texas A&M hurts. I mean, you're up till 2 and you lose. You never want that.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, NC State, Kentucky, wasn't really as interested. I was getting updates as I was driving down to Amarant, and Webby was just telling us, what the score was, and then that Kentucky walked it off. And, other than that, there's not really much to say. And, I mean, heading into Sunday, you had 2 solid matchups, right? Virginia, Florida State. Florida State obviously wipes the floor. Virginia eliminates them from the College World Series. We'll see you later. And then Tennessee stays cooking. Honeycutt can only do so much. Putting up 1 run's not going to do it against Tennessee. We know that. So that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me, too, and I wanted to touch on a couple things. I mean, first of all, the Tennessee-UNC game, Vance Honeycutt was the only one to provide the run in that game. Right? Like, he hit the home run in, what was it, the 6th inning? He was the only guy to provide the offense for UNC that day. And I think the thing for me with UNC is, I know how solid of a team they are, but I don't want them to be getting into a place where they're complacent and they're relying too much on Vance Honeycutt. I mean, they have to be able to do it as a team, man. They have done it all season long. We've seen it. They wouldn't have gotten to this point on the back of one guy. It's just not possible. They've had to have done something right as a team to be able to get here. And unfortunately, you just run into a buzzsaw, man. Tennessee is the better team. They're number 1 in the nation for a reason. Pitching was nails. The hitting just showed up for Tennessee all night long. They're going to be a really hard team to beat, man. They're going to be really hard. And Florida State got as close as they could have to trying to knock them off in that first matchup. But I wanted to touch on that game too, because I don't rant a lot on this pod, bro. I'm gonna give a little bit of a mini rant here. The thing that is very, very frustrating, Florida State fans, I think you need to understand this, and it's exactly what you just touched on. With a call like that is borderline heat of the moment, cannot be reviewed because it's a check swing. Me and you, we've been playing baseball for as long as we can remember. When it comes to check swings, that is as judgment call as you can get. Okay? That is as judgment as you can get. It happens in a split second. You either see it or you don't. And you either think one way or you think the other way. No amount of bitching and crying is going to change it because, like you said, you should not have been in that position to start from. You should not have been in a position where that check swing now defines the opportunity for Tennessee to win that game, which they did. They took advantage of that. Sucks. In the moment, if you want to say, yeah, dude, that's a blown call, that sucks. It is what it is. But your guys also have to step up and make sure it does not get to a point where maybe that does become a blown call. It sucks. You can't review it, but get over it and keep pushing. I'm so tired of just seeing the discourse on this for days. Florida State is a very talented team. I have said it all year long. They're a fantastic team. The pitching, they've had their struggles. They've had starters go down with injury. The bullpen has been up and down, but that lineup has been consistent as hell, and you saw it. They scored 11 runs on Tennessee. 11 runs should be enough to be able to beat them, especially when you have Carson Dorsey throwing over 100 pitches, starting that game for you, FSU. No. That was incorrect by me. Jamie Arnold pitched this game. My apologies. Carson Dorsey, I'm recency bias. I'm thinking of Carson Dorsey in the second game against Virginia. You have Jamie Arnold go out there, actually give you all that he has, and the bullpen was actually not that bad. Tried to help you out a little bit, but once you get to that ninth inning and that call shapes everything for you, you put yourself in that position, man. You hate to see it, but bounce back. And they did. Give them their credit. Sunday, they could have easily let that call get to their heads and just went out of it. They could have easily let Virginia run 10 runs up on them. They've been the best hitting team in the ACC all year. There's no comparison. Virginia has the best hitting stats. As much as FSU has been dominant in the lineup, Virginia has been a monster. And FSU held them down. Carson Dorsey, that's what I was thinking of. He shut down Virginia in that game. You got to give him a lot of credit for bouncing back on that. So flush everything that happened against Tennessee. Yeah, you should have won that game, but you didn't. It didn't happen. You won against Virginia. Keep it pushing. You got to keep winning. Backs are up against the wall right now. Backs are up against.
It's great to watch you rant, man. I mean, I got nothing to add to that. That's
all I got to say.
Yeah, like you said, us too, we grew up on baseball before we could walk. We were playing with baseball. It's like, it's always the same speech you get after that game. We should not have been in that position to begin with. Yep. Every coach will tell you that. It's just the truth, and that's just the way it is. So good on FSU for finding their way through it, navigating all the horse shit online, and putting together a performance on Saturday.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Credit goes out to them.
Holmes, let's take it to the NBA, NHL. I want you to tell me which team has the best likelihood to close out the series in their next game. Is it the Celtics or is it the Panthers?
In my opinion, I do think it is the Panthers. And for the reason that I think as much as the Celtics have looked very, very dominant against the Mavericks so far throughout this series, I think in comparison with the hockey and the basketball, the Panthers have looked just, I don't want to say dominant again in this aspect because they have just been undoubtedly the better team. I think in basketball, you can say, yes, the Celtics definitely have been the better team through these 4 games so far. But I also think we haven't really seen the best version of the Mavericks. They've been very, very poor. Their shooting has been off. Nobody else besides Luka Doncic is stepping up. Kyrie Irving has been abysmal. Like the defense has been non-existent. With the exception of game 4 where they came out and just blew out the Celtics, this has not really been the best version of who they are. I feel like more so when we're watching the hockey, the Oilers are putting it all out on the line, but they can't match the Panthers. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying when these two teams first came into the Stanley Cup final. This was a very big clash of playing styles. Edmonton is very fast, skates with a lot of finesse and skill, looks to line up the perfect shot all the time. The Panthers do not play that way. The Panthers play fast, but they're gritty. They're physical. They put the puck on net relentlessly. They don't look for a perfect shot. They're going to put as many shots on net as possible because eventually one's going to go through. And it has. You've seen it in the first 3 games. They have just continually put pucks on net, played amazing 5-on-5 defense. The Oilers just can't seem to figure it out, in my opinion. I mean, they just seem like they're kind of lost. And in game 4, where they blew out the Panthers 8-1 in an abysmal game that I hated watching, you just kind of knew from that first period, the Oilers went up 2-1, 3-1. You're like, Panthers are kind of just going to throw in the towel here. And the Oilers are going to try and embarrass them. I turned to Wilf. I was watching the game with Wilf, and I said the Oilers might look to score 10 goals tonight because they are going to try to embarrass the Panthers and get in their head. The Panthers decided from the first period that game was over. And we're going to go through the motions. And that is totally fine. Don't risk all of these guys getting injured. Don't risk all of these guys losing their stamina, losing their energy for a very important game 5 when you're going home and have a chance to lift the cup in Sunrise, Florida. That, I think, for me, I think the Panthers have a much better shot to be able to do it here. Even at the Oilers' A game, it looks like they are not able to get anything done against the Panthers. I think in terms of the NBA, the Mavericks might have a little something cooking. I know how good the Celtics have looked, but if they come out and they steal this game 5 tonight in Boston, they go back home, it might be looking like we're going 7 games. Because I don't see them going back to game 6 and be like, whoa, we got this far. What, are we just going to throw in the towel here at home and lose game 6? I don't think so. I think the Mavs have a little bit more fight left in them than the Edmonton Oilers do, but that's just what I see from the outside. What about you?
No, I mean, you hit it right on the head, right? I mean, the Mavs, we've seen, they've played like shit. Absolutely horrible. Mm-hmm. And they still snuck out a game. Kyrie's only going to get better. Their depth's only going to get better. Porzingis, breaking news, does not have a minutes restriction. He's going to go down with an injury. We know that. That's a no-brainer. It's just like the more you could keep the pedal to the metal if you're the Mavericks right now, the better off. You know Tatum and you know Brown, one of the two is going to have a great night. That's just how they are. Your goal should be to just shut down the rest of the team. Because if they can't facilitate and it all comes down to them, that's where they fall apart. That's always been the Celtics' falling point. They play down to your level. It's just how it's always been with them. Whereas the Panthers and the Oilers had a hell of a game, and they've been playing hard the whole series. The only problem is the Panthers are just that much better than the Oilers. And in my eyes, this is the equivalent of the MJ Pistons series for Connor McDavid. We know McDavid is a finesse guy. He's not really physical. This is going to teach him going into next year. Physicality is essential if you want to maintain that you're the best player and you want to get to the Stanley Cup. That's just how it is. So I have a great feeling about the Panthers, and it's not just because of bias. It's just genuinely, if you look at the way both teams are playing on the losing ends right now, the Panthers have it in a better situation. So with that, I'm taking the Panthers, taking the Mavericks. Not really a shocker here. But yeah, I mean, that was like the main stuff we had to talk about today. So
yeah, I don't want it to be me misconstrued out there that I don't think the Celtics are to close out. I 100% think that they are going to be the 2024 NBA champions. But in a broader scale of things, I also turn to a little bit of age and experience. The Celtics have been deep into the playoffs before, but with this core group of guys that they have, Jason Tatum, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, they haven't won that ring yet. And these guys are still relatively young. They're in their 20s. I don't think a lot of people realize like that. They have been in the league for so long. Feels like these guys are like pushing 30 and are like, going to be out in 5 years. No, dude, these guys came into the league when they were like 19, 20, like kids, couldn't even drink yet. And they're out here like still finding their way. So there's a part of me that thinks like they're still very young and they could have a part of that immature mentality that can catch up to them. As mature as they have looked this year and as grown up as they have looked this year, especially through this playoff run, like going almost undefeated on the road. I mean, that game in Dallas that they lost on the road, that was the first game that they have lost on the road in the playoffs. They're 7-1. I mean, they were perfect on the road. That to me is a very big sign of maturity for the Celtics. But when you get in a situation like this, fourth one is the hardest to win. They only have one guy there that knows what it's like to win. It's Drew Holiday. That guy needs to be able to step up and be like, this is what we need to do to close this out and win. And in terms of the Panthers, they were in this situation. They were in the Oilers situation last year. They made it to the Cup. They had a spectacular postseason run, but they ran out of gas. They didn't have enough in the tank to match up with the Golden Knights. And you saw it through 2 games. You were like, the Golden Knights are better than the Panthers. They just are. And I think they're going to win the Cup this year. And this year, it's the other way around. The Oilers are in the Panthers spot, and the Panthers have taken the Knights spot. You can see the Panthers are better. They've been here before. They knew what it took 100% being here, what they're going to have to do to close out. Those guys are veterans on that team. They have been with the Panthers for a long time. The guys that they have brought into the team are veterans, have been around the league for a while. They're not young dudes. They got a couple of young dudes on that team. That's a veteran-laden team. That's guys that have played for a while, that have been hungry for this shit, that have wanted this shit for a long time. Getting that taste last year and being that short, that gives them, I think, that extra step of motivation to be able to seal it this year.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's what I got.
All right. We're going to keep it short today. Short and sweet. We're going to have a lot more to talk about on Thursday. I have no doubt in my mind.
Sure.
But we will see you guys then. So if you did enjoy, please make sure to like, subscribe, share with everyone you know. Go check out Off the Bench banner. Go figure out why Gary didn't show up today. We will see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
You're